Hello, welcome to Gay Cruise and Travel Podcast with me, just Joey T. Welcome to a very special extra edition of the Gay Cruise and Travel Podcast. And as promised, I am going to go through the cruise vacation guide for the Atlantis cruise coming up less than a week from now, from Miami down to the Caribbean, aboard Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas. It is Wednesday afternoon as I'm recording this. Literally an hour ago, we all got the cruise vacation guide. For those of you who don't know what the CVG is, maybe you're joining Atlantis for a cruise for the first time, or maybe you are a newer cruiser. Maybe you've been on one or two Atlantis cruises, but it's been a while and you need a bit of a refresher. What I'm going to do today, I'm pretty much going to be your audiobook version of the cruise vacation guide. It's a PDF, by the way, so it's a PDF electronic booklet, if you will. It's a PDF file. It's got 30 some odd pages. It's got a ton of information. I am basically just going to go through with you the parts of the guide that I think you really need to know. There's some parts of the guide that is like, you're not going to die if you don't read that section or know that section even exists. But there are some other parts that I think are pretty important. And I'm also, as usual, going to give you my advice and my take on all of it. So if you want to follow along, sure. But I think this is maybe going to be of the most value for people who tend to just skim through things. If you want to just listen to this, if you're not a reader, you're a listener, you really just want the audiobook experience, Just Joey T is here for you. But I still recommend downloading the PDF onto your phone so that you just have it as a reference if you wanted to look up something later. But all right, let's get right into it. Hey, when was the last time you really took care of your skin? The skin is the largest organ in the whole human body and is doing so much for you. It protects you from germs and cooties. It keeps you warm when you're cold. It keeps you cool when you're hot. It's making vitamin D. It gives you the gift of touch and sensation. And that's just scratching the surface, so you better take care of it. I started my own skincare company, Serve Labs, to serve fun and functional skincare for everyone, so that you can serve fun while serving face. Go to servelabs.co, servelabs.co, or follow us at Serve Labs on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and discover how easy and fun it is to treat your skin right with Serve Labs. I'm going to jump right to page 4, which is the itinerary for this cruise. If you listen to the January 27th edition version of this podcast, the one that just came out 2 days ago, I talked about the itinerary change that we had, and we're not going to St. Juan anymore. Instead, we're going to go to St. Thomas on the Virgin Islands. So that new updated itinerary is now in the cruise vacation guide. It's in the Atlantis publication, if you will. One quick thing to note about the times you listed here: arrival times, departure times, and the gangway times. And the gangway times are what you will see in the Royal Caribbean app right now, if you have that loaded. They are technically different things. For example, the arrival time in the CVG, maybe it says that we're arriving somewhere at 8 a.m., okay? But in the Royal Caribbean app, it might show a gangway time of 8:30 a.m. or 9 a.m. So arrival time is when the ship physically docks or is scheduled to dock at some location. The gangway is the thing that you walk on to get on and off the ship. The gangway time means when you're scheduled to be able to walk off the ship. So when a ship gets somewhere, it docks at a port of call. They have to do some paperwork, administrative stuff, do some checks, blah, blah, blah. That takes a little bit of time. So usually somewhere like 30 to 60 minutes. So that's why you see that discrepancy between the arrival or departure times and then the gangway time. Gangway times is when the gangway is open or closed. And the arrival and departure times is when the ship is actually scheduled to arrive and depart somewhere. The final thing I would say about the itinerary changes is itinerary is always subject to change. I've been on cruises where midway through the cruise, while we're sailing out in the ocean, they had to change the ports of call or they had to change the times around. It's not usually the case that itinerary will change, but sometimes there's some unexpected bad weather comes in or something unforeseeable happens, they will make changes to your itinerary on the fly. So you will get the Cruise Compass daily newsletter every single day. So if they had to make an itinerary change at the last minute after we departed Miami, they will put that into the Cruise Compass newsletter. If you ever see a conflict between any information you get on board via announcements or the daily newsletter, which is the Cruise Compass, you also get on board, that will always override what's in the CVG. So keep that in mind as we go through the CVG right now. All right, page 5 is some important information. I hope you have all your travel documents already. So this section goes through more in detail that, make sure you have your passport, basically. Check the expiry date on your passport. If you're a US or a Canadian citizen, you don't need a visa, but you're a citizen of another country, maybe sometimes you need a visa. So this is not cruise specific. This is anytime you travel from one country to another, you're doing international travel, you just always have to be aware of when your passport expires and do you need a visa for all the places that you are going. So there's a little more information in there. Registering online with Royal Caribbean. Now, this is not absolutely necessary. It is not absolutely mandatory. You do this registration online. However, I've said in a previous podcast before, this is a sold-out cruise with something like 5,500 passengers on one of the largest cruise ships in the world. But it will make everyone's lives easier on boarding day if the maximum amount of people do check in online with Royal Caribbean first, because it just speeds up the process of getting everyone boarded onto the ship. However, if for whatever reason you're not able to register online with Royal Caribbean, it's fine. Honestly, it's no biggie if you really couldn't do it. Just make sure you have all your travel documents with you, and they just do everything in person. It just takes a little bit longer. But, even if it takes like an extra 5 minutes per person, when you multiply that out by however many thousands of people boarding the ship, it could slow things down a little bit. So if you can, go ahead, register online with Royal Caribbean on their website or the mobile app. But if you're not able to, don't sweat it. You'll be fine. All right. Next, page 6 is just some, and also page 7 is just some general advice about getting to the cruise and then some of the shore excursions and some of the tickets. If you need to fly there, I assume you probably have your flights already. It's literally like 5 days to the cruise. Booking shore excursions, if you have already tried to log in to the Royal Caribbean website, or you have already put your reservation into the mobile app, then you see some of the shore excursions listed. I don't think they have anything quite listed or fully populated yet for St. Thomas, because that itinerary change that was just put in. But for St. Martin doesn't really have a lot of excursions, just because there's not that much to do there. But Labadee, there should be quite a few short excursions. So if you're interested to pre-book that, you can do that online. You can also book short excursions after you board as well, as long as there's still space for whatever thing you want to do. So not a big deal. But it's nice. If you were looking forward to short excursions, I would recommend just doing it now, because obviously space does fill up. So if you really have your heart set on something, I would just recommend doing it now. Show tickets and bookings. I'm going to come back to this when we get to later on in the CVG, because there's a whole entertainment section about all different shows and talent and everything later on in the CVG. So I'll come back to that, but you don't need to worry about that for right now. On page 7, before you go, this section talks about like all sorts of advice about packing and currency and baggage and all of that stuff. Let me just boil it down for you. No gym clothes. If you plan on going on any of the specialty restaurants, you can have like a t-shirt or like khaki shorts, stuff like that. Just no like gym shorts or tank tops. Okay. Overall, on Atlantis cruise, the dress code is very casual. And it's only in certain places there's really like a dress code. And it doesn't say this in the CVG, but I really want to drive home the point. I don't think you should wear a jockstrap in the buffet. And I did, in a previous podcast episode, I talked about this at length. So if you really want to hear my thoughts on that, you can go listen to, I think it's the one that was like 2 episodes ago. The only other thing about clothing I would say is, bring a light jacket and maybe don't pack only shorts. You might want to pack like just a pair of pants. If you're the type of person that tends to run cold, I'd run very cold compared to like everyone else. So I always bring a jacket, a light jacket, and I have some nice sweatpants that I bring because I can't just wear shorts all the time because it's not always going to be like super warm, especially at night. You know, like if you walk outside at night across the pool deck or the upper deck or something, it does get windy. So it's not guaranteed to be like 80-something degrees and sun all the time. There's a section about currency. The whole ship runs on US dollars, so all the pricing you see on everything is US dollars. Prohibited items. This is something I want to highlight. Usually, Atlantis does not set the policy on what items are prohibited or not on a cruise. Usually is the company operating the cruise, i.e. the cruise line, that has their own policy, and Atlantis just kind of follows that. So here, I'm just going to say this cruise is operated by Royal Caribbean. Go to Royal Caribbean's website, and they have a very extensive page on what is not allowed. I'm going to link it down in the description below. But to just really quickly summarize, anything that's like a weapon, a firearm is no. Power strips, I talked a little about this in a previous episode. That's kind of sort of like a newer thing. They just had a recent change in the policy. By and large, like 99% of people kind of like are able to just use their common sense and like it'll be fine. But just in case, I would rather you just follow RC's policy and not this little section here. So I'm going to link the RC's list of prohibited items down in the description below. All right. Moving on, we're on page 8 now. The party themes have already been announced, so I'm not going to go through them again. I did a whole podcast episode on party themes. They've been discussed for many weeks now. They've been out on the website for weeks. They sent out an email about these, so I'm going to skip that one. Because the next page is actually one of the most important sections of the CVG. We're on page 9, and it talks about all the information you need to know about embarkation day. The two most important things in this section to know is the address and location of the port and the check-in time information, because check-in opens at a particular time and it closes at a particular time. Now, I did a YouTube video going through what you need to know the morning of boarding day, the morning of embarkation day. I will, of course, link it down in the description. If you've never been on a cruise before, or if you've never been on Atlantis cruise before, or it's been a while, you want a refresher, I strongly recommend that video. Not only because I made it, but it just goes through in detail just things that you really need to know and just get your shit together on the morning of the cruise. So we are going to be at Port of Miami. Okay, that's the name of the port. That's where you're going to punch in into your ride-sharing app. Royal Caribbean, our ship will be out of Terminal A, okay? Port of Miami is very big. Huge cruise port, a lot of cruise ships, a lot of different terminal buildings. We are in Terminal A for Alpha, okay? So if you just punch in Port of Miami into Uber or Lyft, fine, it'll take you to the port. And then when they say, okay, which terminal? There's like 50 terminals here. And you're like, I don't know. There should actually be signs that says the Allure of the Seas and what terminal is in. Sometimes they have a digital sign, sometimes they don't. But Terminal A is where you need to go. So just make sure you get to the right terminal, because you don't want to be dropped off at the terminal and have the Uber or Lyft disappear into the distance and you're like, oh shit, we're at the wrong terminal. It's not the shortest walk from one terminal to another because the terminals are quite big. Port of Miami, Terminal A. That's where we are. Okay, check-in time information. Check-in opens, according to the CVG, around 11:30. So this is not like a hardcore, like 11:30 on the dot, doors open. But I also gave this advice in that YouTube video I just mentioned. Don't plan to arrive much earlier than 11:30. Most hotels don't make you check out till like 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. So if you are staying at a hotel or even like an Airbnb, the checkout times are usually pretty similar. I don't think it'll be like a problem for you. When you register with Royal Caribbean online or in the mobile app, you will have been asked to select a check-in time window, like 11:30 to 12, 12 to 12:30, 12:31, so on and so forth. It would be best if you've just followed the time window you selected there. And on some of these bigger ships like ours, it's a huge ship, at some of these bigger terminals, they often do enforce the check-in times. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I can't really tell you in advance, like on that particular day of our cruise, exactly what we'll do. Because the crew at the port, they have discretion to like enforce it if they want to. But when we have 5,500 passengers trying to board, we don't want half the ship to just show up at 11:30 a.m. when it opens, because you're just gonna be like lining up probably in the sun with nowhere to sit, just standing around with your luggage. I know everybody is eager to get onto the cruise ship and start their cruise vacation. Me personally, the idea of standing outside in the sun with the luggage for like 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever, is not the idea of a good start to a vacation. I would rather just come in the time slot I picked, not before 11:30, because there wasn't any time slots before that. And like go have like a nice brunch, have a nice lunch, grab a cup of coffee, and then not show up to like this long queue of a lineup, So that's just my 2 cents. The more important time though is when check-in closes, which is 4 p.m. according to the CVG. I also checked the Royal Caribbean app and it says all aboard is 3:30. I think it's actually 4 o'clock, so you're fine. So just make sure you do not arrive after 4 p.m. Make sure you get there well before 4 o'clock. But ships don't tend to wait for people. I've seen ships leave people behind for people who are late. So don't show up before 11:30 and don't show up after 4 p.m. But that's like a really nice 4.5-hour window for people to show up in. So I think you should be good. Continue on to page 10, more embarkation date information. This section is about alcoholic beverages. In my last podcast episode, I talked at length about the alcohol policy of what beverages, alcoholic and non-alcoholic, you can bring on board. And that information I got straight from Royal Caribbean's official website. This is another one of those things where Atlantis usually doesn't have their own overriding restrictions of what beverages you can bring on board over the cruise line. So I usually default to what the allows and doesn't allow. I will also link RC's beverages policy. It's not very long. Basically, every person can bring 1 bottle of wine or champagne. Each bottle must be 750 milliliters or less. It has to be a bottle, not like a boxed wine type of a situation. Other types of alcohol like hard liquor or beer are prohibited. You can't bring those. And for non-alcoholic beverages, you can bring 12 cans or bottles or cartons of each up to 17 ounces. Next section is about if the airline loses your luggage and then your luggage is delayed by the airline, they have some very specific instructions for what you should do. So this is, like you're not sure or there's a chance that the airline might not be able to get you your delay luggage or find your delay luggage until it's like cutting it too close to when you need to board the ship. Then you might want to reference this particular section in the CVG on page 10. I'm not going to go through it, but it's just quite a niche thing. Okay, page 11, we're going to talk about quote-unquote the Atlantis experience, okay? I already mentioned the Daily Cruise Compass, which is a daily newsletter we're all going to get. There should be QR codes in all sorts of places that you can scan with your phone as long as your phone is connected to the ship's Wi-Fi system, and you don't need to buy the internet package for this. There's a lot of stuff you can access in terms of like services on board by just connecting to the Wi-Fi network, even if you didn't buy the internet package. And the Cruise Compass daily newsletter is one of those free things. As long as you connect to the ship's Wi-Fi and scan this QR code, and you get an electronic PDF version of every day's Cruise Compass newsletter. Every recent cruise I've been on, since they've done this QR code thing, they've also optionally had paper printed versions of the Cruise Compass available on request. It used to be that like before COVID, your stateroom attendant would just give you a printed copy of the newsletter every single night. But I think usually if you want a printed version, you can ask your stateroom attendant, or you can go down to like the front desk. There might be like a few areas in the ship where you can like go pick one up. You don't have to read every word and every letter in the Cruise Compass, but it's really handy to just reference it, and it's really handy to at least glance at the front, because if anything does change, that's going to be one of the main places where they communicate that out. If you need help for whatever reason, every ship has a guest services, just like every hotel has like the front desk to like help their guests. Every cruise ship has a guest services desk. This is going to be on deck 5 on the promenade on the Allure of the Seas. Atlantis also has someone from their team right at guest services for any like Atlantis specific issues because this is a chartered ship. So Atlantis has what they call an info desk, and that's set up basically where guest service is just basically right beside guest services. So when you go to guest services, there is usually also most of the time an Atlantis person there as well. All right. It switches gears on this page 11 to talk about some of the social meetups. So this is one of the things that I wish Atlantis publicized more, because I think this is a great thing on Atlantis cruises. And it really helps kind of get people together. And it's a really great way to meet new people through shared interests. So I think this is like something really great, and I want to really highlight this. Listed here is a bunch of different types of meetup events that are sprinkled throughout the cruise. Unfortunately, you don't know which events are on which days or where they are. It's all going to be in the cruise compass. So you're not really going to know until the night before or like the day of what meetups are going to be happening that day. But there are meetups for people who are into leather, people that are veterans, people that are like parents. So there's all sorts of different things. There's a whole list of them here. There's like a dozen of them listed here. And they're also, moving on to page 12, meetups for people who are single, especially. So they have like sometimes drinks thing, like a drinks thing for singles, where like maybe they'll meet up at a bar and it's just like a singles meetup. I've also seen them do couples meetup. So like different couples, there might be like a couples dinner or like a singles dinner or things like that. Those are very common on the Atlantis cruises. So I highly recommend those. Unfortunately, you don't know which events on which day, and not every single meetup happens on every day. There's not going to be like a singles dinner or like a veterans meetup every single day. So you just have to look at the cruise compass for that. Okay, we're now on page 12. Social media policy. A long time ago, on like a different podcast, this like a year ago, I talked about on an Atlantis cruise, people having sex at the parties, or people having sex on the dance floor. And this social media policy is like, this is Atlantis policy, not that World Caribbean probably has their own thing, but this is like kind of sort of a newer Atlantis policy, the social media policy. And basically, I'm just going to read it out here. Please do not post anything explicitly sexual on social media in a public forum or space. I don't want to like speak for Atlantis because I don't work for them. I volunteer for them a handful of times, but I am not like, I don't work for them. I don't work for corporate, okay? I'm not like a full-time employee there. It's not a good look for anyone for there to be like some sort of video float around the internet of people like fucking on the dance floor on a cruise. So that's basically what that social media policy it's about. I know this is a gay, I've been on a lot of these. I know what goes on the cruises. So, but I'm also not here to like preach and tell you what to do or not do. The only thing I really preach about is the jockstrap and the buffet thing is about as far as I'll go. But that's the social media policy. Okay, we're on page 14 now. We're about to enter the entertainment preview. Okay, that's on page 15. Before we get to that, I said I would come back and talk about bookings and tickets and reservations about the shows. This is a sold out ship, and all of the shows in the main theater, all the bigger headline talent, most likely are going to be packed. Okay, so if you come late to a theater, even if you already had a ticket or something, it might be that the whole theater's filled and there might be a little bit of sound room at like the very back on like the top level. Some of the shows, they will ask people to just reserve it, make a reservation. None of the tickets cost money. None of the shows cost money. So I want to get that out of the way. If a show does, quote unquote, require a reservation, it would be best to do two things. These are my two tips, okay? If there's a show you want to see, make the booking, but also show up early. Those are like the two things to do. Make the bookings very, very easy. You can do it in the Royal Caribbean app. Right now, the Atlantis Specific Entertainment is not loaded into the Royal Caribbean app. By the time we set sail, it will be in there. Maybe not for like the entire 7 days, but at least for like the first day or two. And then just show up early. If you come late, usually about 10 minutes before the start of the show, they let everybody in so that people that didn't get a chance to do the booking on the phone or on the TV or whatever, they still have some access to the show. If it's a busy show, like one of the bigger names, one of the headliners in the main theater, I would say come 15 or 20 minutes, give or take, if you want like a decent seat. If you don't care so much about having a decent seat, you just want to have some seat, then you can come maybe like 10 or 15 minutes before. But usually a lot of times with Royal Caribbean, once it gets to like 10 minutes before the show or 5 minutes before the show, they don't check for tickets anymore if it's a show that requires tickets. Okay, can I tell you something for real? Skincare is not really a sexy topic. No one's waking up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, I have to take care of my skin. I know I talk a lot on the podcast, I have a lot of opinions, and I have a lot of advice to give. But if you don't listen to me about anything, listen to me about this. You have to take care of yourself, and you also have to take care of your skin. I believe in it so much, and I think it's such a critical thing that I started my own skincare company, Serve Labs, to serve fun and functional skincare for everyone. And you know what? Not to toot my own horn, but people are always telling me, your skin looks so good, and I can't believe how old you are. Do you know why? Because I've been taking care of my skin for many, many years. But I know, for a lot of you, skincare just sounds like another chore. But I want to make it fun. And that's where Serve Labs comes in. Go to servelabs.co, servelabs.co, or follow us at Serve Labs on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and discover how easy and fun it is to treat your skin right with Serve Labs. Okay, now we actually get into the entertainment preview, which I think is like the most popular part of the CVGs, the part of the CVG that cruisers look forward to the most. And as I go through it, you'll kind of sort of see why. But this is when some of the talent is actually announced, like, who is going to be playing what shows, what kind of stars are going to be on the ship. Not every one of them, but some of them. So we're going to go through every day, and I'm just going to touch on some of them. If you want all the details, again, just look in the CVG. All right. Monday, day one, there's the sail away party, which is just like a really casual party. It's not like a big dance party. It's just so that you can be up on one of the upper outdoor decks to watch the ship set sail. Just kind of fun thing to do. There's a first-time cruisers orientation, which is just some Atlantis staff talking for about 20-30 minutes before the first show in the theater. It's kind of helpful if you're the first time, if you don't get a chance to go because it is dinner time, you're not missing that much. Ocean Aria is a Royal Caribbean show. I've seen it. It is actually like a bunch of acrobats, and they do diving from like really, really high up, just in the aqua theater in the back on the boardwalk. And I think they do a few of that show. It's not just on the first day, but like I think like every other day, something like that day. So be into like acrobatics and diving and that kind of stuff. That's worth checking out as well. That's a Royal Caribbean show. Throughout the different days, there's going to be gay comedy all-stars. So there are quite a few queer comedians that are on board the ship, and they do various stand-up shows, and they kind of sort of do a rotation. Not all the comedians go on every single night, but you see that as a repeating show that pops up most of the days on the calendar. Cacophony Daniels, drag queen, I've seen her show. Just quite a few drag queens I noticed. Monet Exchange is on the ship, and Jackie Cox. If you're a fan of Drag Race, you recognize those names from the Drag Race empire, if you will. And there's also a Miss Richfield, 1981. She does a lot of the drag shows. I actually just saw her show on my last Atlantis cruise in November. Love her. She's great. The first real party is the welcome party. So I know I said we wouldn't go into any of the parties, but I'm going to highlight the welcome party because it's not listed anywhere else. It's the first time it's like actually listed, but it's not a themed party. It's not a themed party. However, unofficially, here's the inside scoop, it's an underwear party. So wear your best, nicest underwear. If you're not comfortable wearing underwear, that's fine. You can just honestly wear anything. Day 2, Tuesday, bingo with Mitch Richfield. So I just said Mitch Richfield, drag queen that comes on a lot of the Atlantis cruises. Bingo with Mitch Richfield. It's actually quite fun if you like bingo. You don't have to play. I can actually go and just like watch. I've never played before. You do have to pay, but it's actually, you know what I found out, and I guess it's not a surprise to most other people, but it was like a little surprise to me. It's a real bingo for money. So you pay X amount to like enter and play when you win real money. So there you go. Dog Tag Tea Dance is the first Dog Tag afternoon tea dance. And it's always on the first full day of the cruise. So it pops up here on Tuesday. Mamma Mia is a Royal Caribbean production. Blades is ice skating type of a production, also Royal Caribbean. More gay comedy. And then we have, there's quite a few singers, very talented singers that are on most of the Atlantis cruises I've been on. And they always get new names and new talent to come in. So apparently we have Alyssa Ray from American Idol. I don't watch American Idol, but if you follow American Idol, maybe you'll recognize Alyssa's name. And also, we got more drag queens. There's so many of them. I'm not going to list all of them, but there's a lot of like queer entertainment on the ship. Let's put it that way. Enchanted Forest is the first nighttime, well, it's the first themed nighttime party that we're going to see day 2 on Tuesday in the solarium. Day 3 is on the sea day, and then we got more of the gay comedy, more of the drag shows, more drag bingo, and then there's another party that night as well. Thursday in St. Martin, there's another Royal Caribbean show called Blue Planet. I don't know what it is. So on a Atlantis cruise, you have the Atlantis entertainment that they commission with like the gay comedy and the drag queens and some of that stuff. Royal Caribbean or the cruise line, usually they still have all of the shows going too. So like you get like a double dose of entertainment. So if you really like seeing shows, there's going to be a lot for you to see. Just pick and choose the ones that you like. Miss Richfield, she doesn't only do the bingo, but she also does a stand-up show of her own as well. More comedians, more gay comedy. And Thursday, there's going to be the EDM concert. And I kind of called this because every cruise, on this cruise every year, there has been an EDM concert. And there's always been a big name EDM DJ that comes in, and they never announce it in advance. So right here, it just says EDM surprise headliner. Probably maybe like sometime after we set sail, or maybe like when the cruise compass comes out for that day, we'll know who the DJ is. But this is actually pretty typical that we have an EDM concert, but we don't know who it is yet, who the DJ is. Friday in St. Thomas, we have the Think Pink Tea Dance. We have Monet Exchange doing a show. Jackie Cox is also performing at the same day. Probably what's happening is Monet Exchange and Jackie Cox, they might be joining the cruise partway through. They might not be boarding with us on Monday in Miami. So that's why they got to kind of sort of get their shows in ASAP. I think Monet Exchange is only doing that one night. According to this, Monet Exchange is only doing 2 shows, but they're all on the same night, 7:30 and 10 p.m. Just on Friday when we're in St. Thomas. And then Friday is actually quite a big day, so there's going to be 2 parties that night. In addition to the drag queens is the Atlantis Classics Party, which is music from some previous decades, from like the 80s, 90s into like the 2000s. And then the Neon Playground Party overlaps with that. So you kind of sort of have 2 parties to bounce around a little bit. Atlantis Classics will start first, and then eventually will transition into the Neon Playground Party in Studio B. Indoors, one of the few parties that's in Studio B on the whole cruise that kicks off at midnight. Saturday, while we're at Labadee, Aeroautic is an awesome show. This is not a Royal Caribbean thing. Is a team of acrobats that is hired by Atlantis. They're on most of the Atlantis cruises. You've been on any previous Atlantis cruise, you probably have heard or seen them. So amazing. I know a couple of boys that are in that show. Like the stuff that they do, it's awesome. It's like, even if you're not into acrobatics, like just go see that show. They're playing Saturday and also Sunday as well. So we can't make one night. They'll be on the other night, but like one of the must-see shows on any Atlantis sailing, especially if you have not seen them before, Aeroautic, please go check them out. Strongly, highly recommended. And then we have more gay comedy, more of the drag queens, and then Saturday night is white party night. That party will go late. If there's enough people sticking around, they'll probably play it till the morning and play it till sunrise on Sunday, which is the last full day of the cruise. That is day 7. We have more drag bingo, the final Aeroautic show. In the afternoon, we have the final tea dance, which is the disco tea dance. And then it kind of winds down a little bit that night. And then for those who just have to dance one last time, there is the last dance in Studio B before we get off the ship on Monday. So spend a little more time on the entertainment preview because a lot of people look really, really forward to it. Again, just a reminder, this is a preview. So the cruise compass will always override the CVG and things are subject to change, okay? So again, refer to the cruise compass you get for the latest dates, locations, and times of anything that is happening on board the cruise. Page 18 is a little bit of like the credits for like the various performers that are going to be on the ship. I am a circuit boy. I am a circuit queen. I like to call myself an international circuit queen. I party in Europe. I party in Canada. I party in the US. I party in Mexico. I party in Australia. I partied in Bangkok. I party in If you follow me for a few years now, you know I've circuit partied in a lot of places. Some of my favorite DJs are on board this ship. If you will just indulge me, I just want to take like 30 seconds to shout out some of these circuit DJs. Dan Slater, Surrey, GSP, Abel. Okay, Abel spins a lot of the cruises, and he's so good at doing the cruise parties. Like, really give it up to him. Dan Slater, honestly, all of these are part of my favorite DJs. DJ Surrey, he's one of my favorite DJs. I've never seen him on a cruise before. So it might be maybe the first time he's on an Atlantis cruise. Dan Slater is a regular. I love Dan's music. GSP as well. Like, these are really some of my most favorite circuit party DJs. So as a circuit boy, a circuit queen, I am very, very excited for this lineup, especially with DJ Surrey joining Dan and GSP and Abel. I think it's going to be really, really awesome. Page 19, we're going to touch on some of the party venues. All the nighttime parties, most of them will be out in the solarium. It's kind of like a half hybrid indoors-outdoors venue. There's like a glass semi-ceiling. So you get like a little bit of wind from the outside, but it's not like a fully outdoor venue. It's not like poolside. And in Studio B, it's a fully indoor venue. There's like 1 or 2 parties there. There's also the backup venue in case there's like bad weather and we can't do something in the solarium. That is a possible backup venue. If they have to move one of the nighttime parties indoors, it will go into Studio B. And some of the shows are in Studio B as well. It's kind of like it's like a flex space. And then we have the main theater we talked about, where we do like the main kind of typical traditional theater type of shows. That's called the Royal Theater. The Aqua Theater is an outdoor semi-theater, and the tea dances will be at the Aqua Theater as well. We're going to go really quickly through the rest of this here because the rest of this stuff is not like stuff you need to be like super, super concerned about at this point. Page 20 is a list of all the dining venues and the times. This is also repeated on the Cruise Compass, and I already told you the Cruise Compass supersedes the CVG. So just refer to the Cruise Compass for a list of all the dining outlets and also for the times, but sometimes they might change. So I wouldn't look at the dining operating hours on the CVG. I would just always refer to the Cruise Compass, and it's on every single day's Cruise Compass. There will be a page with all the dining operating hours, the opening hours for all the different restaurants. I'll look in the Cruise Compass for that instead. We talked about in a previous episode of the podcast about the specialty restaurants. Every passenger on this particular cruise will get a voucher for either lunch or dinner to one of the specialty restaurants. And there is some fine print attached to that. It's been repeated in quite a few of the emails Atlantis has sent out, and they're repeating some of that fine print here. There's also room service, which is supposed to be 24 hours. The mid or early morning hours, like 4 a.m. until breakfast opens sometimes, there's a bit of a blind spot where there's nowhere to go for like a proper meal, for actual food. And that's where like sometimes the room service comes in handy. But at other times of the day, there's like going to be something open. Singles dining, I told you about how you can go to like the main dining hall, and if you want to, you can get seated with other people. That's just repeated here. You have a special diet. You can just let Royal Caribbean know whenever you go to any of the restaurants. Sometimes they will ask, but you can always just let the server or the staff in that restaurant know as well. Beverage packages, those are all on the Royal Caribbean website or the app. If you have done regular Royal Caribbean sailings before, it's not the same packages they will offer on an Atlantis charter cruise. So they have the drink ticket system for all the alcoholic beverages, it seems like. And the only packages you can really get that are like the traditional Royal Caribbean type of drinks packages are for soda and water. It depends exactly how much you're going to have to pay for it, but it's a little bit different on every cruise. But very rough rule of thumb, if you drink like 2 or 3 cans of soda every day, I think that's where it's worth it for you to like get the soda package. And here it goes goes into more details about the drink ticket, which I've also talked about as well, but just a quick refresher. Every room is going to get 42 drink tickets. So usually it's 2 people to a room. So you'll each get 21 drink tickets. They only work for beverages, but it does not work for Starbucks. There's a Starbucks on board and you can't use the drink tickets at Starbucks, which I think is stupid, but whatever. Each drink ticket is worth $7 of beverages, and you can combine tickets for more expensive drinks. Like if something is $14, then you can just use 2 tickets. That is the super quick summary on drink tickets. And if you want to buy more drink tickets, you can also do that on the Atlantis website, not the Royal Caribbean website, in advance, and then you will pick them up, your drink tickets, after you get on board. All right. Page 24 to 25 just goes through a list of all the different restaurants. I talked a little bit about the buffet, which is called Windjammer. It's the technical name. I talked about the main dining. There's a bunch of specialty restaurants. If you are interested in that, I'll let you read through that on your own. But yeah, I think for people who are not into the specialty restaurants, you will probably be eating most of your meals at main dining, which is like proper sit-down 3-course meal, waiter service, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Windjammer is open most of the days. They do a breakfast service, lunch service, dinner service. It's probably open something like 18 to 20 hours of the day. They shut down for like an hour or so between the services just to like clean up and everything and get ready for the next service. They are also open for the late night service, which is kind of sort of like 11 p.m. or 12 midnight on to 3 or 4 a.m. So like while the party is going, and I always go to the buffet before they close to grab like a second dinner, basically. There's also Cafe Promenade, which is like a small little cafe, little snacks, little finger sandwiches, and like drip coffee and tea. Sorrento's is the pizza place, oh my God, I eat so much pizza on these cruises. It is gross. Park Cafe is actually really, really neat. There's this place called Central Park on the ship, which is like literally a park. There's like live plants and trees, all that stuff. Most cruise ships don't have this. It's actually really cool. If you ever get a chance to just walk through it, it's really cool. Park Cafe is actually kind of a little bit of a hidden gem. I feel like not that many people keep eyeing the Park Cafe because it's kind of sort of like hidden away in Central Park. So it's like a little bit out of the way. Yeah, and there's also a hot dog place, and it's free hot dogs out in the boardwalk in the back. I always forget about that place too, but it's free hot dogs. The smoking vaping policy, there are some specific locations where you are allowed to smoke and vape, but only in those designated areas. I think one of them is usually on one part of the pool deck, but they're going to be listed. I think they do list them in the cruise compass, and you cannot smoke in the balconies because that is possibly a fire hazard. So don't smoke or vape on your balconies. In terms of tipping, pretty much everything has gratuities included. If you look at your reservation book of Atlantis, you notice that there was a line for gratuities and like port fees. So pretty much most of the tipping is done for you. However, if you would like and you're feeling generous, I think you can leave a tip for your room attendant at the end of the cruise. These are the people that do the room service. They clean up after your room. They take care of you and your stateroom while you're on the cruise. It's not mandatory, but it's appreciated. Very last thing that I'm going to highlight is the care team, because that's that's an Atlantis specific thing. So the ship themselves has a medical team, the infirmary, if you will, down on one of the lower decks. The care team, if you get a little too turnt at the parties, or even if you are not at the party and you get a little hot girl wasted, okay, you know what I mean, okay, the care team can help you with that. And the care team, they're not police, they're not like security, they're not there to like slap anybody on the back of the hand and be like, oh, you did this bad thing, we're going to report you. That is not how the care team works. The care team is basically a partnership between Atlantis and Royal Caribbean. They were brought in to help the people who get a little turnt, to help people who are a little hot girl wasted. And having volunteered with Team Atlantis, and I have been in meetings with people from the care team on those cruises that I volunteered for, and have seen them in action and know what they deal with. And they are people that if you just indulge a little too much, you can rely on them to help you. It's just what I want to drive that point home. You can rely on them to help you. They are not there to report you. They're not security. They're not like officers. They are there just to take care of you when you just had like a little bit too much, regardless of what it is that you've had a little bit too much of. So they will have a specific t-shirt that they wear. It will say Care Team on the back. So look out for those people. Be nice to those people. They are there to help everybody have a good time. So I just do want to do a plug for the Care Team. I've seen them in action. They're really good people. They're just great. I'm so glad that Atlantis and Royal Caribbean have partnered up to have the Care Team. I think they're really, really helpful, especially for a cruise like this, which is more of a party cruise. So don't be afraid of them. Rely on them. They're super, super nice people. That is the Care Team. All right. And that brings us, I've skipped a few sections, but that brings it says I've been talking for an hour, and I don't think most of you signed up for an hour podcast. I'm going to edit this down a little bit. So hopefully the final product you're listening to right now is not a full hour. I think this is everything that you might possibly want or need to know before you actually step foot onto the cruise. If you are going on this cruise, I will be there too. So I hope to see a lot of you on board. But with that, I want to stop talking. And until next time, bye y'all.